Hi everyone. Good news for me is Sam says there's no hard stop. I guess that's bad news for you guys. But I have built this presentation just thinking maybe this event may go a little bit over time. So in this deck, which Sam will share with you, there's a little resource picture on the corner of each area that you can go through to and investigate to your heart's content. I renamed the whole event. Hopefully you're all okay with that, because much like the comment before, we're sort of past that bounce back, and from a digital point of view, there's just been incredible growth. I spent way too much time trying to work out what these toys were called. I think the majority of my presentation was trying to work out these are called push puppets, if anyone is interested in the future. My intent here is really to, I guess, digital pulling it all together. So those toys that sort of go, you know, a bit slack and then pull all together. And you've heard from all our wonderful speakers today, and really digital has been at heart a lot of the growth areas. So what I'm trying to do here is bring it all together. I think we've all played really nicely today together, and everyone's not competitive in terms of channels, and the nice thing is for you guys, really clear messages coming for everyone, really clear actionable areas. So 2022, and I'll probably call that 2022, 2023 when I'm talking about, I guess, the year ahead. And again, Sam's brief was tell them everything they need to know about digital for the next year, which is bloody hard, right? There's a lot going on. So I have focused on a few key areas, but I guess this rebuilding while growing theme kept coming back for me. So I guess if you thought it was going to be easier for the next year or so, it's not. You're going to be trying to balance taking the opportunity and making the most of a growing market and expanding market, some really interesting trends and changes, while rebuilding some of the infrastructure in your businesses, in your clients' businesses across the market. So top 9 digital ad topics that we're going to talk about today. In terms of growth in market and reinvestment, and I guess I've got some of the investment numbers here, not so much to go, the market's huge. It is $13 billion digital ad market, but it's really to help you understand, I guess, and benchmark for your clients and for your businesses, what's going on under the hood. So from a digital point of view, we saw a little bit of a blip very early on, way back at the beginning of COVID, so that March quarter and June quarter, and then coming back pretty quickly. Obviously that differs per category, per channel, but pretty solid reinvestment right through the COVID period. If you drill into sort of the different types of formats, and I'll go even further than this, you start seeing some different trends coming through. Search is still the largest part of the market as one type of ad format. Video has been growing incredibly over the last few years. I'm sure you've all seen the headlines time after time, and particularly the CTV part of the market. 3 major areas that are driving changes in digital investment. Well, 3 of many areas, but 3 that I'll point out today. So there's continued change in structure of businesses, and that's on both sides. That's media owner and advertiser. A lot of change there. I guess quite fitting for this audience is the change in investment strategies for paid media for SMEs, which has really been huge over the last few years. The power of SMEs, initially social and search, but increasingly across the board. And that is really changing products on offer and just the way, I guess, that interaction between media and agency or client. And then the third area is commerce, and e-commerce in particular, but I'll put that broader word of commerce. So commerce both from a how people are buying, but also the introduction of retail media, and I'll go into that a bit more. So the blurring of media and commerce is really interesting and a huge opportunity, shoppable formats, a whole lot of interesting stuff going on. So from our point of view, when we're looking at some of the fastest growing areas in market, and this list is really based on fastest growing, so the bases will be really different. It won't mean the highest number of investment. But this is sort of our rough order for the next year or so. And there's some really interesting opportunities here to get involved early, to find some clear space, to do some really interesting things. So the other title I was thinking for this whole talk is sort of test and invest. And there's some really interesting opportunities here. Retail media has been huge in the US. Europe is slightly fragmented, but there's some really interesting opportunities there. We've seen in the Australian market, Cartology, Amazon, we've seen the announcement of Coles Media. You will see 3 or 4 other large retailers come into the space in the next year. So fastest growing from a pretty lowish base with some new players coming in. I won't go through all of these. I'll just call out a couple of others that are interesting. Audio is up there. Audio, I would say I thought audio, and this includes podcasting, probably would have flown away into the growth regions a little bit more before it has. It's definitely been growing really strongly, but the data that we're starting to see over the last 6 months or so is some really solid growth. And you're looking at, particularly for podcasting, almost 100% growth in investment there. So it is assisted by not just having the traditional players there, but a whole range of players. And you saw earlier on from Jamie, some of those interesting new players come in the mix. Programmatic digital out-of-home is huge. We've done a lot of work with a lot of case studies on that. And the other area that's really interesting, and you know, I at times can be a snob, and anyone who knows me probably realises that. But there's been a bit of a resurgence, and particularly at the top end of town, on the affiliate marketing and partnerships area. And that's really growing, and it's I guess the performance media side of things, but also larger publishers working in this space. You've got, you know, News Corp, R Media, you know, very large publishers who have got someone specifically working on that affiliate space. So again, really interesting opportunity, that blend of commerce and media coming through. What are people doing? I don't think there was a week during COVID without a headline saying everyone's spending more time online or on their screens within the household. Interesting thing here is that time has really stayed. So if you look at the red line, which is 2022, that real big uplift has not gone down. We saw a little bit of a shift at the end of last year when people were very excited, quite rightly, about getting out of the home, catching up with their friends, not watching media, still really high bases, but we're still seeing that growth overall. A few categories I'll point out, there are many, and there's nuance in data, as you know, sort of get to below, to Dom's point, get below that sort of top category level, but news is still huge, and that's a good and bad thing always with news, but an amazing trusted environment to be in as our news stories continue to come thick and fast. Real estate, our love affair with real estate continues. There's just not I don't think you can go almost either in the news environments or within Facebook a couple of screens without seeing a market is up, market is down, record-breaking numbers. And then commerce, again, that's the theme I'll come back to. So the whole retail area coming through really strongly there. So drilling down into e-commerce a little bit, and for those of you who don't check out the NAB online sales index each month, I would recommend it. It's a really, really useful read of the market of what's going on. So e-commerce continues to grow. So we're looking at about nearly 15% of the total market being e-commerce. So just to put that in perspective, it's not everything. It's a growing area. So it's grown about 15% year on year in terms of that year on year number. Some really interesting changes in the category area. So takeaway food, you know, we're stuck with it. Uber Eats, all of it, it's growing, it's there, it's been big, and it continues to grow. So these are all growth numbers year on year. Department stores I thought was a really interesting one, and that's a real mix. And some of that is almost a lag of some of those bigger stores being a little bit slower with their digital transformation. They are there now, people are getting used to buying them. They're well and truly invested in the market. The chart down the bottom is a state-by-state chart. So if you're looking at commerce for your clients, there's some real nuance in terms of states. And at the moment, that year-on-year trend is really related to lockdown. So if you see the black line there, unsurprisingly, Victoria, during lockdown, e-commerce had a huge uplift. And the red line you see when New South Wales sort of went back into lockdown. So there's a lot of state-by-state nuance there. I guess the true thing around e-commerce, you get in media, people on one end going, e-commerce is going to be everything, it's going to take over absolutely all offline sales, and then you get the sort of people who are going, it's all going to go back to normal. Truth is somewhere in between, as always, but you can see that trend line if you sort of take out those bumps going up year on year. We've had Emma. We seem to like female names in measurement. Iris is your new friend. So one of the biggest projects that the IAB has been working on the last year is a huge market review of measurement and industry currency. Hopefully you all have seen the press that we're working on a new digital audience currency for content areas and moving from Nielsen to Ipsos, and the Ipsos product is called Iris. The reason the IAB does this is not just to have fun with top 10 lists of news providers who all give me a hard time when they're not number one. It was actually at the request of media agencies to go, please, we need an independent number when we're comparing data across the field. So even if your agency may not be big enough to buy the currency, some of you I know are already on board with Iris, but just know that the IAB invests a lot of time, a lot of energy, as do all the publishers, to make sure there is a currency that is consistent but also inclusive. So it doesn't matter if you're tagged or not tagged, or client or not client, we will have that data in there for you guys to see what's actually growing at what rate. I won't run through all this. Iris, it's a hybrid methodology, so you've got panel and people, but with a lot more data points, a lot more metrics, so behaviour, information, so beyond those straight demos. So come and chat to me if you're interested in seeing more, but we're really excited about bringing this out in market. The other very, very exciting thing, which hopefully Kim is excited about as well, is that we're working with OzTam to bring the CTV data in, so we will have a complete video number. Comparison with the digital video and the broadcasters as well. So that's a really big move, and something we always say we're the first ones in the world to do it. I think we're the first ones in the world to do it, but let's say that. Identity. This is a big one, and I'm not even going to try and do it just too much justice in a few minutes. This is one of the areas that we're working on constantly. So not only changes of cookies, and I'm sure no one wants to read another story about the cookies going away, but changes with Apple, changes with privacy, finding ways to, in a privacy compliant way, to connect your clients, your audiences with publishers, and make sure that the advertising industry thrives. So we sort of break up the world of identity into three buckets, roughly, in terms of addressable audiences. So first-party audience data, so publisher data, what we call seller-defined audiences, publisher tells you, who you're getting. I guess the grey world there is the world of changes to operating systems and browsers, so changes to Chrome, changes to iOS, etc., and understanding what you will be able to do, which is a lot less, and I think there's a lot of stuff in market that everyone will be able to recreate everything as it was. I won't pretend that's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of changes. There's some real opportunities there to redo your tech, redo your partnerships, but also think about reaching new audiences in different ways. So pulling out from some of the very targeted behaviour and going a bit broader. So I would say best thing to do is look at your current contracts, arrangements, talk to publishers, talk to ad tech to try and get your head around that. The Google changes are still in testing, so things still could change. So make sure whatever you're doing to rebuild is flexible enough, and again, your contracts are flexible enough. If something changes, you can tweak, rebuild, etc. And then the third one is actually linking audiences, so actually linking advertiser data with publisher data in safe, privacy-compliant ways. So there's the sort of three ways that we look at the world. There's a resource there which you guys can go and have a drill and look at who sits where in different ways. Privacy regulation, your favourite topic, right? Couple of things here. We are still probably 18 months away from privacy regulation actually being in market, so the updates to the Privacy Act review. There are a lot of hints from the government on what they're looking at. There's a discussion paper at the moment. We're engaging quite closely with government. A couple of things I would say. Probably most people in the market, when they come up to me and they talk about privacy, they say one of two things. They say, our company's global, we've got GDPR sorted, we're fine, we'll be fine. The second one is, we're going to wait and see what's in the actual final regulation. Neither of those answers is right, in case you're wondering. Absolutely neither. So our regulation will look different than GDPR. Just be ready for that. And you can't wait to the end or it'll be too late. So use the opportunities while you're rebuilding in terms of identity because of all the tech changes to test it against what we might see in terms of regulation. It's quite philosophical. The more I get into privacy, I almost feel like I need to have an ethics and a philosophical sort of approach to it. I think an interesting 2 words within the proposed in the discussion guide, fair and reasonable. So pulling right back out when you're dealing with data. So it's very hard to give you an answer when you say, can I use an IP address? Can I use a cookie? Can I use whatever? Because it will depend. And it really, you have to flip to the consumer angle of going, is it fair and reasonable? Would I understand that's being done with my data? So really try and have those discussions with your clients internally in terms of that understanding and pulling back that communications directly with clients so that they understand in the simplest possible terms, which in the ad tech industry is almost impossible. So if anyone can crack that, come and see me. You're in the communications business. But really do test that in terms of that consumer understanding if they would expect that their data to be used that way. Special offer. So Brian was here offering trips away, hotels, dinners. At the IAB, we have a different version of fun. We have a free privacy fundamentals course, which I would highly recommend all your people do. Anyone touching data, which is a horrible term, right? But anyone who is at all either selling or using data, it's normally $350. I feel like a salesperson. Sam will love this. $350, but if you want to, the first 100 people can take that course. It's not fun, it's not dry, but it's really essential. So please, please jump in there and do it. This is on the current legislation, which a lot of people don't know, Spam Act, but it also gives a nod to what's coming in other markets and around the world. So I guess off the back of identity, there's going to be a lot of changes in metrics and measurement. Our friends at IAB UK have, for the last few years, run a fantastic day called the Anti-Click-Through Day, also called Don't Be a Clickhead. So I guess while we're changing dashboards metrics, can we use this as an opportunity to get rid of the metrics that just were never right, please? I'll just play a really, really quick video that came out in February this year. There you go. So try and get rid of those clicks if we can. Look, a simple table of the way that we look at trying to break out what metrics you need when. We've got a fantastic training program that is free for everyone if you want to, again, spend some time having some fabulous training. But the metrics that will come through all of these areas will be quite different. We're working on ways of trying to, for those longer term market mix modelling, brand studies, those ones that are, take longer, that are hard to do for smaller clients and smaller agents at times, working on ways that we can make them more accessible for people. And you've seen some of the other industry bodies make some of their data available as well, but we will be working closely with all you guys to make sure that you are interpreting results in the right way as you lose signals from some of those shorter term measures. Transparency. God, I've got all the fun hits today, haven't I? So there are increasing expectations from hopefully your clients, but also from government in terms of transparency. And we've seen this for the last few years. Everyone remembers probably the famous 15% delta. So trying to match end-to-end understanding of what's going on, particularly in programmatic advertising. So we're working very closely with the government. There's a large report with recommendations there. We have had a lot of transparency on the sell side, so those who are across sort of the ad tech side of things like ads.txt, sellers.json, to try and make that side of the world more transparent. The buy side standards are coming. They're there, and we'll be working very much with the DSPs in particular to make sure that way of being able to look at impressions right through the pipes is a lot easier to do, matching log files, but also having those standards in place. So over the next year or so, there'll be hopefully easier ways for you to, even if it's not a large audit, but match what you're buying to what you're getting. Last one, investing in people and tech. The talent conversation is, I'm presuming, as hot in this room as it is everywhere else. But there's definitely a huge opportunity here to make sure that we get more people into the industry. Sam and his good mates in government have managed to release a couple of areas pre-budget, so things that are already, tax deductions that are already in market that are likely to stay. One of those is around talent and training, so 20% deduction there. So if you're doing external training with certified training providers. So again, an opportunity to, with your teams, with your clients, to get them through training if possible. The other tax advantage is in relation to tech and investment in websites, investment in SaaS platforms, really upskilling, and this is all around the digital transformation and making sure Australia's sort of got everything going, particularly obviously for SME, so that less than $50 million revenue side of things. So take advantage of those, really get them on your agenda so they are current now. I think the tech one goes through till the end of 2023 and one goes through to 2024. Check that with your bookkeeper, but they're around for a little while. We are doing a lot in the investment in people side of things. We've just appointed a Director of Learning and Development who'll be working with industry, working with IMAA, working with the universities. Today we just announced a careers fair. I think it's the first industry careers fair that we've had as a broad industry, which will be at Advertising Week in August. So at Luna Park, lovely environment. We'll be getting hundreds/thousands of university students in to hear about our industry from a range of different faculties. So they will get a chance to go to the sessions, as well as old school careers fair booths, chat to people, etc. So really looking forward to that one. We'll work with the IMAA on their training, and of course we've got our own bits and pieces on our website as well, which you can take part in. So have fun rebuilding. It's going to be really awesome, and growth opportunities are huge at the moment, but just doing it in the right way. I always think of the IAB as like a parent, which again doesn't sound particularly exciting, but making sure we've got all the rules in place, all that infrastructure, that we can send everyone off out to have fun, to grow, to develop. So that's the way we look at the world. Don't be a stranger. Check out our stuff on the site. There's lots of resources for free. My email there if you want to contact me directly. Easiest way to keep up to date with what we're doing, weekly newsletter. Really sounds quite analogue, doesn't it? But once a week, all the stuff we're doing in there at once. podcasts, heaps of video libraries and events, and often we have them open for everyone, so keep your eye on what we're up to there. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed today.